Hey guys, this is Tony with Geek Designs. I recently got to interview Brad VandenBerg for the Geek podcast. We talked about art director, what it is, how to become one. We talked about tips for graphic designers. We talked a little bit about more about some stuff. I think this episode's got some real good value for you. Take a listen to it. I hope you enjoy it. Also, sorry for the bad audio quality. I was trying a new setup with my audio for my phone. It didn't turn out that well. I tried to clean up best I could. But here you go, and take a listen to it. Thanks.
I guess we'll start with the first question, which is tell everyone who you are, what you do, and how you got into design and all that stuff.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me just boom, boom, boom. There we go. All right. So, yeah, first question. Who am I? What do I do? Well, my name is Brad VandenBerg. I am a freelance art director, designer / consultant. A lot of people poo-poo having like different titles under one person, but sometimes like depending on the role that I'm getting hired for, falls under one of those three.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that's pretty much what I do. I also play a lot of video games. I like to eat food and drink beer with my friends. I love the internet. I don't know. That's pretty much it.
So how did you get into design? I like hearing how people get into it. You know, some people fall into it. Some people know they're going to be doing it. So how did you get into it?
Well, let's see. So I was, ever since I can remember, like when I was a real little kid, my mom was an art teacher. So like I've been drawing and messing around with clay and cutting paper, like just being creative, doing all kinds of projects and stuff like that since I can remember. And then I think it was like through like middle school and high school, I was like, not into art classes anymore because I was like, I've done this my whole life. I don't want to be in art classes anymore. So then I kind of like got away from it. And then at the end of like high school, my good buddy Kurt kind of like showed me Photoshop for the first time. And this was like when I first started getting it. I was like into skateboarding and stuff. And like when he showed me like Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff, and this is like way back. This is like before Photoshop, like right when layers were new in Photoshop. He was showing me that stuff, and I was like, oh, so this is how they make all of the stickers and the board graphics and like t-shirt designs and all that stuff. This is how people make all that stuff. So I got super into it and like kind of learned it on my own. And then just by chance, my buddy Kurt and my buddy Pat, again, they were like, I like skipped out of class to go like to the bathroom or whatever because I was bored, and I saw them walking down the hall, and I was like, where are you guys going? They're like, oh, we're gonna go check out this off-campus photography class. And I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. I'll go with you guys. So like I just kind of like skipped out on school to go with them, and we checked out this photography class, and then like walked into the dark room, and then the dark room joined these two different classrooms together. And so one was the photography class, and then the other was this design studio class. And so we walked into there, and I was like, whoa, what is all this? And the teacher was like, yeah, like these are computers for graphic design and all these big desks for like drafting and drawing and illustrating and stuff. And I was like, holy shit. And then they were like, yeah, people go to college for this. And then people like get jobs doing this. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. Like, cause like forever I thought I was just going to go to school and be an accountant or something because I was good at math, which I really not really that good at math, but it was like the only thing that I could like really see myself doing. But anyway, going to this class and seeing that this was a thing, and that it was like not just in like pretty much in every industry, and you know this.
Yeah,
every
it's everywhere.
Industry needs designers, needs graphic design, needs visual communication, and so like right then I was like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm good at. I'm going to follow this passion and see where it goes. And so like that's how I got into it.
Okay.
And then after that, it's just the snowball of like books and stuff you see on the internet and other designs you see people do, snowballing into inspiration and like just pushing that motivation and that drive.
Right. So did you like after you got out of school and stuff, like did you like do like an agency or like in-house design or something like that? That's usually like when people go out, that's usually the two options you have is that or freelance is one of the three.
Right. So the program that I was in was really focused on like the conceptual side of design, and not only in design, but all their other programs. The school that I went to is really known for pushing concept and like painting, sculpture, and all the other fine arts, illustration, design, all that stuff. So they didn't really there was like the senior year was kind of like the year to build your portfolio.
Right.
But it wasn't like a whole lot of like, and then when you get a job, you're going to do this and do that. Like the business side of it was kind of like non-existent. So I was just like, well, I'm going to just stick with what I'm really into and what I know. So I'm going to try to get jobs at all these like skateboard or snowboard companies. And this was 2003. So like after 9/11, like the whole East Coast, everyone was like consolidating on all the design shops and agencies, and companies were like really like tightening down as far as like no one was hiring and all that stuff. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going to look to the West Coast. So I knew I wanted to do in-house, and I knew I wanted it to be somewhere in the action sports, surf, skate, snow industry. So that's kind of where I focused my search. Agency stuff, studio stuff, I always thought that those were cool, but like they weren't really, I wasn't really aspiring to that yet. I just wanted to make cool stuff that would like show up on shirts and in magazines and stuff, and people would buy it or whatever. And so like I just followed that path.
Okay. So you said you're an art director, and I get asked all the time, like, what does an art director actually do? So I think it's one of those things in school you hear what an art director is, but you never get the full description of what one might do. So can you give a little detail about that?
Yeah. Hang on one second. I'm hearing music somewhere.
Okay.
I can't figure out where it's coming from. I don't know if it's my music or my neighbor's. It was my music. It was my TV. Sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. So yeah, like what is an art director? That's a good question. That is a sort of like a title or a role. However, titles and roles can be very different depending on the industry, depending on the company even. Also can be different depending on whether you're in an agency or an in-house or wherever. In the agency world, it tends to be pretty consistent because people are leaving, coming and going, and getting credited and paid based on titles and roles. However, like in-house, so when I went to go work out west, I worked at Billabong, and the art director title at Billabong was probably more of what like an agency would call like a creative director or like group creative director, like the head director of all of the creatives, rather than someone who's hands-on with working with designs and stuff like that.
Right.
And so when I left that world and went to agency world, they asked me, okay, well, what role do you want? And I was like, I don't know, like maybe like senior graphic designer. Because like to me, I thought like art director was like someone who just didn't touch design at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to still be creating stuff. So I kind of like shorted myself there.
Right.
But then come to find out when I started working in agency world, art directors are the people who actually they're kind of doing a little bit of both. They might have designers under them that they're sort of directing, but they're kind of setting the look and feel of the project that you're working on. Like they're directing the art, and sometimes that means that they're getting their hands dirty and they're working on it directly. And sometimes, like I said, they're just instructing other designers or interns or whatever on how to execute their concept or the look and feel that they develop.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what art director kind of means to me now, I would say.
Yeah, I've heard it. People in that position, it changes all the time depending on where you work and what company you're working with, and
And it's funny because like even in the agency world, there is a distinction between designer and art director. The designers are more like once the concept's been like established or whatever, and it might be like rough sketches or whatever, then it goes to the designers to like make it cool, like make it look awesome or whatever. And that can be a whole other department sometimes. And then other times, and this is why in my title I make the distinction that I'm both, like so that I can get hired to just make cool looking stuff, or I can get hired to work on like the more conceptual, high level kind of things.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because like I'm an in-house. They call me an in-house designer for a company down in Charlotte, but in actuality, I'm the entire marketing department.
Oh yeah.
But I'm also a freelance designer outside, so and I'm basically a creative director, art director, and designer to do everything after that.
Mm-hmm.
For some clients, but
yeah, you wear a lot of hats.
Yep, you do.
That's what happens in in-house. Like when I was working out west, there were no copywriters at all. So it fell on us, like the art department. We were under the marketing umbrella, and so we were kind of like coming up with our own copy lines, which was kind of weird. Granted, in like surf, skate, snow, there isn't a whole lot to be said.
Yeah.
So like, we were kind of like had it easy on that front, but
yeah. Also, how do you, to follow up with that, which how does one become an art director? Like, is it just like you kind of start out as a graphic designer and work your way up, or is it one of those things that you might need a special skill set to become one?
So the path that I took was through art school and through like a design program there. So it was just kind of like the what's the word I'm looking for? The degree there was a visual communication design degree. So everyone, we just call ourselves designers or graphic designers, and the jobs we were looking for were graphic designer jobs. And then art director was something that you would, get promoted into or go to another company, like move up by going out to another company.
Right.
But there are, and this is, I can't really speak a whole lot about this because I'm not even that familiar with it, but there are like advertising or I forget what they call them, but like portfolio schools where through the whole school process, you're kind of partnered with a writer and you're an art director writer team, and you kind of go through the whole schooling and learning process, learning about advertising specifically and working together with a writer. And you already have that title because that's what the role you're trying to fill. I don't know a whole lot about that. That's more like in the agency, like advertising world.
Right.
That's always been interesting to me.
Yeah. So what kind of skills does one need when you're an art director?
I would say it's definitely heavier on the concept side of things than the actual skill. The skills in like the knowing the programs and like all of that stuff, you're kind of expected to like develop that on your own. At least like kind of the way that the schooling that I went through, you were expected to arrive having taught yourself that or taken other classes to learn that stuff on your own. Like,
right.
I remember one time we were like, okay, and then the next project's gonna be a Flash project. And I'm like, I don't know anything about animation. I don't know anything about Flash. And so like for that project, I actually just did like storyboards and I didn't even like really animate everything. And I mean, the professor was like, yeah, that's understandable. Like some of the people here are excellent and others are more photo based or whatever. So as far as like skills and stuff like that, I would say that, learn that stuff on your own. There's tons of resources for figuring that out. There's some art directors and creative directors that I come in contact with who can't draw at all, and that's totally fine because they're more about like getting the idea out there,
Right.
and then when it comes time to like really shape it up and execute on it, they're really good on like Illustrator or InDesign and Photoshop to really like make it look good. But then there's other art directors who are amazing at sketching and stuff, and so they can bring their concepts to life that way. But I think the main thing, sorry, I kind of took the long route to get here, but
Oh, that's fine.
for art directors, the main thing is to have strength in the concepting. So that means in advertising, I guess that would mean like an overall campaign idea that ties back to the strategy, and whether or not you have a strategy team that comes up with that, or it's up to the creative team to come up with a strategy. That all depends on the place that you're working at or with. But yeah, the skills would definitely have to be strongest with the concept. And then with graphic designers or designers, it would the skill set would lean heavier towards execution, making stuff look cool, knowing all kinds of tricks in Photoshop and Illustrator to like, everyone has their little signature styles and ways of doing things in those programs.
All right.
But yeah.
So you've kind of like done freelance, agency and in-house, which some designers have done, but kind of few haven't. They either just pick one path and stick with it. What are the differences between all three when being a designer in those situations?
Let's see. Like I said earlier, in-house design, you're wearing a lot of hats. Like I said, sometimes you're the copywriter, sometimes you're the creative director, designer, and art director. Sometimes you're the strategist. Like sometimes you're also the person in charge of social media or whatever.
Right.
You're learning a lot about all the roles that you can sort of cover because you're usually working on a smaller team. Agency life is more like everyone is super specialized. Like I said, some people are just there to do the graphic execution of things. And so they're super good at it and they make stuff look really awesome. And then other people are there that are just to like, even if they're like creative directors or whatever, they're just to write they're just there to write papers. Like, this is what this is, and then this is how it's going to work, and blah, blah, blah. And even like strategy and copywriters and project managers and stuff like that, everyone has a role. So you can kind of really just focus on what you do. The workflow is different because you can focus so much, and because you're only in charge of doing one type of work, you're able to churn out more. And so it's like, it's kind of like nonstop, which is nice because you can really just kind of put your head down. And as a freelancer, it's really good for, putting in some hours and making some money.
Right.
In-house, like I said, you're wearing a lot of hats, so you don't get to focus as much, but you learn a lot about all the different parts of what makes a business or a brand run. And then freelance, like from home kind of a thing, it all just depends on the project, the size of the project or the team that you're involved with. Sometimes it's just one-on-one, and it's more of that in-house vibe where you're wearing a lot of hats. You're kind of covering all the bases because it's just you and the client. Whereas other times you are brought in on a team, even though you might still be working from home, you're brought in on a team who might have a project manager, a writer, an account person, and all that stuff to cover all of those other bases. So it's interesting. It is kind of like a two poles, and then in between it can be any mixture of the two.
Yeah, that's what I've kind of learned.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So what would you suggest someone starting out? Would you suggest them go freelance, in-house, or agency to start out?
That's a tough
Or a
question.
mixture of either?
I mean, there are pluses and minuses to both. I'd say that the advantage of starting in-house is that you learn a lot about what makes it one singular brand tick, and you get to take a little bit of ownership of what comes out. You like I said, you're touching everything.
Right.
Agency, jumping into an agency, like I said, you're more focused, so you learn a lot about the lingo and the infrastructure and the sort of like hierarchy of the agency life and who does what and like where to navigate your career and stuff like that. How to talk to other people in an efficient way, like people using like a lot of buzzwords and stuff like that, just to kind of like quickly communicate what they're trying to say or get done with the project. So you learn a lot of that. I know people who have jumped straight into freelance and they've made an awesome career out of it.
Yep.
And to me, that's scary.
It is.
I didn't do that. The reason why I probably didn't do it is I didn't even know where to start. And at the time, so like 2003, there weren't that many resources. Like,
no, there still isn't. There's more.
Yeah, YouTube didn't exist really. And like, there wasn't really a good, efficient way to like learn stuff on your own. Like, there wasn't really a market for a lot of the books that come out and stuff like that. So, as far as advice, I think I might, the pitfalls are that in agency, if you start out in agency, you tend to get stuck in the mindset like that's the only track to go. And then you're kind of like stuck, like just following that, climbing that ladder. And then in-house, you can kind of get stuck and sort of like very comfortable in that position at that brand or that company, and you don't grow like with different skill sets and different things that are coming about because brands tend to like stick to what works.
Yep. And you got to watch out for either because some of them might have you sign something that doesn't let you freelance outside of it, so you can't explore other options.
Right. True. The strictest thing that I've seen as far as that's concerned is mostly it was just like you couldn't share anything that you were doing at that company on your own social media and stuff. And then also, obviously, you cannot use company time and resources to work on your own freelance stuff.
Right.
But most places were pretty cool with, as long as it wasn't a competitor or same industry type thing, they were kind of cool with you freelancing.
Yeah. So I've talked to a couple people about this, but it's the idea of going to graphic design school now, and is it worth it with how much college is? I know some people who've skipped college and are doing great, and I know some people like me who needed to do it to get where they are now.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on school and how it is now?
Let's see. Like you said, as far as like learning the skills in the tools and stuff like that, don't wait for school for that. Just start doing it. Like there's so much out there and there's so many resources for like working with the tools and YouTube videos and how-tos and books and stuff like that. You can just jump right into that without having to spend any money on the tuition. Yeah. However, the things that I took with me and valued the most from going to school were probably 50% the school side, and the other 50% were like the friends and the life of being at school. So all of those life experiences and friends and all that stuff, those are invaluable and totally worth going to school for at that stage in your life.
Right.
However, the school that I went to, like I said, is very concept heavy. So what I learned there was how to talk about the work, how to form ideas, and how to research and do all that kind of stuff in a very focused program that was, laid out in such a way that it would build you up to the point where you could go out into the world. So I would say in that regard, it would be worth it. But if you're looking to just go to like a program that's just like, here's how to, Photoshop 101, Photoshop 102, just kind of run you through the programs, I think go and
you could use Lynda for that.
Right.
Lynda or Skillshare, one of those.
Yep. For fraction of the cost.
Yes.
And if you're diligent and you're able to like focus and stick to it, and you can teach yourself everything that way.
Yep.
Even without going to full on like college, there are lots of classes that you can take, both on the internet and in person, that would give you enough knowledge to then go out and like hone your skills. But overall, I would say whatever you do, just start immediately with what you can find at your fingertips on the internet and all that before jumping. And don't save anything for school. Don't say like, oh, I'm going to do this when I get to school. Be like, no, just like start it now. Why wait? There's nothing that you can miss out on. The other thing is some people really value that credential because it proves that you can be given a task and you can see it through, right?
Right.
So like companies, agencies, people that are hiring you, they want to know that if they invest in you and they give you stuff, that you can pull it off, right? And like,
I think it at least matters for the first 5 years if you get it.
Absolutely. But then once you have some stuff under your belt, then that kind of goes away,
Yep. But it's like a 5-year investment, which is a couple $100,000. So what kind of tools are you using as a graphic designer? I know like Adobe's still the big king of everything, but iPads are becoming more popular and people are using different tools now. I like to know what people are using and how they're using them in their workflow.
So, obviously Creative Suite, just because that's the industry standard. That's what I grew up learning. That's how I know how to execute things that I do. A lot of illustrators use different programs and stuff. I have no idea, like the first thing, I don't know the first thing about them, but I'm sure that they're pretty similar. But the biggest change for me and the most recent thing for me is the iPad Pro and the Apple Pencil. This is going to sound like a plug, but the change in my workflow and the way that I do work, both my paid work and the way that I just mess around and like explore my own creativity has changed so much from that specific tool. What I used to do is I used to hand draw things, hand sketch them, outline them in Sharpie, scan the Sharpie outline in, then convert it to like Vector and Illustrator or something like that, and then start to like fill in colors and stuff like that, or tighten up the lines and stuff. And all of that was such a big hassle that it was kind of like a hurdle. So it would like stop me from even doing that much like hand drawn work. So like I always kind of avoided it. But once I got the Apple Pencil, iPad, and then like specifically Procreate, the app, took all of those hurdles away. Like took all of that friction away. I could just like start doing stuff, and then it's already digitized and it looks just as good and is sensitive enough to sort of have the same nuance as like the hand drawn stuff, like the line weight and just kind of like the feel of like what I'm drawing.
Procreate doesn't have vector capabilities yet, does it? Or is it still just raster?
No, it's still raster, but like just quickly sharing it out. If you do it in high enough resolution, share it out to
Yeah.
Illustrator, and convert it to vector. Easy
Yep.
peasy. There's another one. Oh, we just talked about it on stream. Was it today or yesterday? Oh, what's the name of it? There's another one that has both.
Is it Affinity?
Yes, Affinity. I downloaded
Yep.
it. Haven't touched it yet, but like I downloaded it like when it came out. I'm still interested in that. And then Adobe's first like stabs at iPad or
Oh, they
iOS
were trash.
are like, I get what they were thinking. Like they were like, this is like a new platform and a new interface. Therefore, we should approach it totally differently. And
when they came out, they had like that ruler and that weird stylus they made with it.
yeah, and like even just the user interface is like, where are my layers and why are things acting this way? What do these icons mean? And this brush is acting weird, and why does everything have watercolor effects on it or something like that?
Yeah.
So it was like more like a toy rather than like a professional like software tool, right?
Yep.
And so with their most recent convention or expo or whatever they call it, they announced that they're like really going to actually bring Photoshop, Illustrator, all that stuff to iPad Pro. So I hope that they learn their lesson from like Procreate and all those guys, that like sometimes it's best to just like stick with what people know and like iterate on that. So hopefully,
I don't know how many more.
Go ahead.
I don't know how many more times they can mess up. So hopefully they do get it right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're going to be around forever, I think. But,
they will, but they might just not have the mobile market then.
Right, which is nice. It's nice that Procreate came about. What was the other one again?
Affinity. It's also on desktop as well.
All of those, like, competition is great because it drives, and like we see it in the video game world all the time. Like, anytime that, like, especially with the battle royale games right now, like, it's great that there's so many of them because they're pushing each other to innovate and evolve and be better for us to use, right?
Yeah, since Adobe came out with the Creative Cloud, it's kind of when it first came out, the first couple updates were good, but then it kind of just went stagnant. It was like small iterate changes, and now that they've got competition, actually, they're making actual changes. It seems like, which is good. Yeah,
I mean, when I'm really like in the middle of like designing something, whatever, what I like the most is when I don't have to think about the app at all, right? Like I can just like fly through, use the key commands, and click and move those things quickly and efficiently, and like get what's in my head down onto the screen.
Yeah, it seems like they're starting to move towards that with some of the changes they made recently.
Yeah.
So hopefully they keep it up.
Yeah, I did mess up, and what was it? It was like just before I was about to like start working on like this big project, like this sort of like to finish it out. I updated my Creative Cloud.
Oh yeah.
And they changed like something. It was something so simple, but it was like something that's been there forever. It was like it was like scaling proportionately in Photoshop.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to shut that off because
they removed the Shift key. Which I guess, like, if they're moving to iOS and touch controls, then I guess that makes sense. But then I was like, this is like something that's been around for decades, and they just willy-nilly switched it off. And now, like, and I had to like go back and be like, oh my god, did I hold down Shift to scale that, or did I not? I don't know.
And they didn't change it on all the apps, so it's just that one app that you have to hold Shift on.
Yep.
So it messes me up every time. So I guess, do you have any tips for starting out designers? You know, people that are starting out that are either in college or about to get out of college and are about to get into the design industry?
So yeah, the one thing that I kind of learned that I wish someone that had like kind of like told me earlier on was kind of like learn when to let go.
Right.
So like at any point during a project's lifespan or the process of bringing it to life, it goes from being your idea to being like the team's idea to then being like the thing that the brand or the company releases. At some point in that life cycle, you need to learn when to kind of like let go of it. It's no longer your baby, and just kind of let it be and grow how it's going to grow on the team. That doesn't mean like say, oh, I don't care, you guys can do whatever you want with this, but like I see a lot of, and this happened to me, a lot of like anger and frustration and like unhappiness because I wasn't willing to like let go of the baby that was the project, right? I've actually seen a coworker of mine, they like stormed into the boss's office and quit on account of it was like one little project. And it was, I mean, there probably were way other factors involved in that like emotional response to it. But like, I don't know, it's just learn when to like let go and then move on to the next project. And then there's going to be a lot of projects that break your heart. A lot of projects that like turned out they were so good when you first thought of it, and then everyone got their grubby hands on it, and now it's this weird abomination, right?
It happens all the time.
Right. And then so like where was I going with that? But every now and then there will be one project that comes along where you get to see it all the way through to the end, and it comes out the way that you imagined it at the beginning. And that makes all of those other projects worth it. And you can like feel proud, and like that becomes kind of like one of your crown jewels in your portfolio, all that kind of stuff. So that would be my advice, is like, don't get so attached, learn when to let go, and then someday soon there will be a project that you get to see start to finish in the way that you imagined it.
Pretty good advice, actually. I've been in that situation. Or I've been in a situation where I don't know how to, you and the person you're working with are at different odds, but you're not communicating it right. Either one party is not communicating it right or either. And then you're stressed about the whole project all the way through the end.
For sure.
A similar situation.
Communication is huge. I mean, that's another big reason to go to school, is that you learn a lot about the communication side of it. How to verbalize what your intentions are, what the thing that you're working on is all about, how to listen, how to like incorporate feedback. Listen to feedback. You don't have to do all of the things that people give you feedback on. But listening is a crucial skill that you learn, how to sort that out, and then how to act on what you've heard and implement it, or edit, leave things out, stuff like that. But like communication is like the crux of all of that, for sure.
Well, I don't have actually any more questions.
All right, man.
So, I guess that's it. I guess you can tell everyone where to find you and what you're doing and all that fun stuff.
All right. Well, on most of social media for my work stuff, it's BVB Design, all one word. That's Instagram, Twitter. I think that's it, really. Instagram and Twitter. And then weekday mornings, I stream myself on Twitch under Big Beer Wolf, and that's where I'm doing a lot of the daily designs that I'm posting on Instagram. I'm streaming them on Twitch. I know it's under a different handle, but
sometimes it's needed.
Yeah, I kind of like the separation there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Also, my website is bradvandenberg.com. But all my socials link to that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time, and thanks for all the answers you gave.
Hey, no worries, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. No problem.
This is the first time I've really experienced the Instagram podcast. It's a
Yeah.
super efficient way of doing it.
Yeah, it's wicked easy.
Yeah. A lot of people get like hung up on like, oh, what software do I need for podcasting and all that stuff? Like, and it's like, just like hit record on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, this and Anchor. I use Anchor, and I just record on my phone, and then it distributes to every podcast platform.
Awesome.